This is Terrence Andre Banks with Information Age Financial Solutions coming to you again about the real estate market, but a different area that has not really been touched on enough, and that's on property taxes and how that is affecting with, especially what we're dealing with the new environment and rental properties going forward and investing going forward, especially in the area of subsidized housing, sometimes also known as Section 8. This factor of tax revenue, because cities are facing a continuous slump because of the obligations they have, and the tax revenue that was once being able to be paid through property taxes are becoming it's not really being talked about enough, that they're getting a less and less base of that money coming in. And how does that play out for investors and stuff like that? The subsidized housing Section 8 model that a lot of investors really became popular in the last 10 years or so after the 2008 crisis, because when it was really before 2008, it wasn't as really as popular as it is now. Now, some people have always used that as a model, but again, the popularity has become extremely, really noticeable in the last 10, 11 years. And what I'm getting at with this is because that model is based on the local government and sometimes federal government subsidizing housing for the individuals that who are renting out the places. And as property values continue to skyrocket, and after the last crash where homes were not, people weren't buying as many houses, so many people moved to renting, that the huge frenzy of everybody talking about real estate as like some new gold mine, like it hasn't been around before, people just kept coming in. How does that play out for the environment we're dealing with now? Well, a lot of these cities were mandated they needed to have a certain amount of housing that was just affordable. Now, again, all of these things have to be paid for. No one really talks about the details, and the devil's always in the details. Well, that money was going to be, and I'm not picking on any area model. It's just that I've just heard that as like this is the new model, new savior, and you're always going to have the money. The government's always going to be backstopping. But in local governments where that money and revenue is not coming in because they shut down so much stuff, and tax values, because that's where the property taxes are coming from, with people not paying to pay the rent, government not getting that revenue, especially local governments not getting that revenue, it's becoming more of a burden. I'm just saying to be careful going forward, because this model has been publicized and preached as there's no risk with this. You got the government always going to help you in that point. Some of these places, you have a rent of $4,000 and the tenant only pays a portion of that. And I know that sounds absurd, but a tenant may pay, places in Massachusetts and different areas, people have $4,000 apartments that just came up because they knew that they were going to have a certain amount that's going to be subsidized government. People losing jobs, especially with unemployment being so high. Last count was 33 million. This has a ripple effect, especially for local government, because taxes have to be able to come in. And I'm not saying that the federal government not bail out, eventually come out to these local places and be able to bail those different things out. But that's not a long-term solution. So that model, again, that Section 8 model or subsidized housing model is really going to become under attack as time continues to go forward, because that revenue for those local areas it's not being calculated and not being collected as it once was. Again, every model has flaws, and nothing is done nothing's done for free, and money cannot always, on the federal government, can be printed, but on the local state government, it cannot. And then you have to have legislation, and usually a crisis has to come forward for that to be out. And they already talked about this again. There was some recent conversations in the House, and the House being so divided that they didn't want to bail out the cities because of this. So they're giving them loans. Loans have to be paid back. And I'm saying this because a lot of investors, especially new investors, really focused on that model, just like the Airbnb model. And I'll probably do a video on that, how that could crash the market, because these things may not be applicable. Be careful about the words. May not be applicable as the go-to model going forward. Real estate is a cash-intensive basis, and whoever's telling you it's not, and you're continually getting loans and stuff like that, is lying to you. It's always had risk factors in place. And the difference between real estate is not liquid. So when you're having these issues of people not paying rent and the government having financial issues, the local government's not financial issues, not knowing where that tax revenue that they once was receiving so readily is being diminished, especially because of unemployment, and they rely so high on property tax, people not paying mortgages. How is this Section 8 model going to be, sustained going forward? Something to think about. It's always opportunity with every crisis, but the way things that were done prior in the last 10, 11 years is going to be uprooted and changed dramatically, especially if subsidized housing is your main go-to method of providing rental housing. It's with local places being under such constraints and financially with unemployment and tax revenue not coming in, especially for property taxes. We're going to see so many more foreclosures going forward. And don't be surprised that governments may not be able to subsidize like they used to be done before. Giving you fair warning, a lot of times it's a ripple effect. It takes a while for this thing to come because there's a lag time. Think about things differently. Real estate is always a great investment for the long term, but it requires a different approach and different thinking and always seeing the new changes it's going to be about. Just something I wanted to put out there, especially for people who are investors in the real estate space, something to think about going forward. If this video has been any value to you, please subscribe, leave some comments. Until my next video, I'm out.